But right now, first with us, David Bossie is on the line. He is the president of Citizens United, producer of the movie Hillary the Movie, and citizensunited.org is the website, hillarythemovie.com, also a website. And David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Thanks for showing up. The essence of the way that you guys have been framing this, and I'm sorry I missed your interview with Chris Matthews yesterday. Louise was telling me about it, but in essence, the way that you've been framing this argument that has been taken to the Supreme Court is that people, and in fact, in reading the news stories about it, that you say that this is like, banning a movie and banning books, burning books. Is that your riff? Do I get that right?
Well, it's not mine. That was Justice Kennedy and the United States Deputy Solicitor General's point. That was not my point, but that was what Chris Matthews articulated very well. And it is true. It doesn't matter the content of the film, whether it's a film about Hillary Clinton, either pro or con, or any other topic. If it mentions a candidate, it is illegal under the definition of McCain-Feingold, and therefore the Justice Kennedy and John Paul Stevens, both justices, asked lines of questioning that basically went like this: if Mr. Deputy Solicitor General, if the content of this film, or any film like it, if it is considered banned speech, and is in that same content is then in book form, is the government's position that it could be banned? And he said a one-word answer: yes.
Now, here's where I think you're being just incredibly disingenuous, David. In fact, I'd say outright deceptive. And let's say that.
I'm sorry. Hold on, Tom, for a moment. Stop, because if you read, and I know you were overseas, so maybe you haven't had the benefit of reading any of the.
No, actually, I have read a number of the arguments, and I've read the news stories about it, where I said, no, David, David, pause for a moment. David, I'm going to put you on hold so I can finish my sentence, because you don't know what I was even going to say. What I was saying is, where it seems to me that you're being incredibly deceptive, is you're saying that this movie is forbidden speech. And what this issue is an advertisement that would run on the public airwaves during an election about the movie. So now
are you kidding me?
No, I'm quite serious. This is the story. At issue is in the case being argued before the justices is the 90-minute Clinton movie are the ads that Bossie wanted to air during the 2008 primaries advertising the film. That's the core of this. Let's say that let's say that you were running for Congress, David Bossie, and in your run for Congress, I decided that I wanted to get a special message out about David Bossie. So I do a story about how you got fired from Dan Burton's office for lying about Hillary Clinton. A Republican fired you for lying about Hillary Clinton. Or I did a movie. I just called up a bunch of people and said, send me some video. I'm going to do a cheap movie about Citizens United and their connection to Donation Report and the Donatelli group that did the Swift Boat movies. And then, well, I'm going to give you a chance to talk, David, but let me make my point. You're 55 seconds into this thing.
You have no point. You have absolutely no.
David, and I spend very little money on a movie so that I can spend a lot. Well, let me ask you a simple question here then. Here's a very, David, David, here's a very simple question for you. A very simple question. As I said, what if I wanted to make a movie smearing you? And I only wanted to show the movie in 8 theaters, but I wanted hundreds of millions of Americans to know the message by buying advertisements because you were running for political office. Just a very simple question. How much money, if you could have run those ads? David has dropped off the line. Okay. Well, here's the question for David, and I guess I'll just leave it at that. If you could have run those ads, how much money would you have spent on the ads? See, I'm sure the reason he hung up is because he knows that these guys are pushing so hard, and I'm going to break my own rule of not trashing guests when they're not here to defend themselves, because he voluntarily left. But the fact of the matter is that you put together this thing, you say, okay, I'm going to make a movie about Hillary Clinton. Anybody got any dirty videotape? Send it to me. And let's say I spend just a small amount of money making the movie. Okay? I'm going to spend, and I'm not in fact, let's even take it out of the realm of Hillary Clinton. because the question that I was going to ask David is, how much were you going to spend advertising the movie during the primary, during the election time, versus how much you spent making the movie? Because I would submit to you, and that Chris Matthews got suckered by this guy, and everybody's been suckered by this guy, that what this is all about is, and apparently two justices of the Supreme Court, or maybe they were just asking the questions in a different context. But the real issue here is not should a movie be banned, because nobody's talking about banning the movie. The real issue is not should a book be banned, because nobody's talking about banning a book. If it were banning the movie, I would be in absolute agreement with David if he allowed me to finish even one sentence. If it were about banning books, I would be in absolute agreement. But it's not. What is at issue here is whether we can have third-party groups, in this case the same bunch of folks. In fact, what he is fighting, one of the things that they're fighting is to not have to reveal who's funding them, who would be paying for these ads. So let's say, for example, that Barack Obama's up for re-election. Actually, let's flip it around. Let's make it a Democrat. Let's say that Senator John Kyle, is going to run for, or John McCain's going to run for election again. And the DNC, and I got a bunch of people, with a whole bunch of money, and they want to trash John McCain. But if they run the ads, they have, the source has to be revealed. You have to know who's running the ads. It has to say this ad is paid for by so-and-so. So we spend $100,000 making a quickie movie about John McCain and how, for example, let's say, for the purposes of, and I'm not asserting this as a fact, but, that he was a screw-up as a pilot, for example, in Vietnam. Or something like that, something that reflects poorly on him. The way he dumped his first wife, for example, when he came back from Vietnam. Something that reflects poorly on him. And then I come along, and during the election, I run a bunch of ads that are ostensibly about a movie that really isn't in national distribution and nobody is going to see. A movie that's incredibly unsuccessful. But I don't really care, because it's not about the movie. I want the ads to say, I want to take a couple of excerpts out of the movie and put them in the ads. But I want the ads. I don't want the ads to say, this is an ad against John McCain and in favor of Barack Obama in matchup number 2. Instead, I say, these are ads for a movie. The movie happens to be about John McCain, but these are ads for a movie. The ad happens to say that, John McCain wasn't a patriot or was a lousy pilot or whatever, fill in the blank. But these are ads for a movie. And therefore, it's not protected speech. It's not political speech, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When, in fact, the movie is not even the point. The point of it is the ads. And that's why I'm convinced that's why David Bossie did not want me to finish a single sentence, that I had to put the guy on hold in order to finish even one sentence. David, I'm sorry that you didn't stick around. In fact, I think it's probably the first time in a couple of years that one of the many conservatives who are on this show, and I certainly, gave you plenty of time to set the thing up. It's a shame you didn't want to stick around and answer the question, because I'm really curious. How much did the movie cost to make versus how much were you going to spend advertising it and calling it movie ads?